Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Savvy Cast. Whether you are listening to the podcast or viewing the YouTube, I'm so glad that you're here. Today, we're going to talk about one of my current favorite things, making your own pizza. I am on such a pizza making roll, it is not even funny. And I will preface this by saying I have never made pizza at home. The main reason being, I just do not enjoy cooking with yeast. I don't enjoy wondering if it's going to rise. I don't enjoy the precision with the temperature and with rolling it out. I just am not into that. So I've never made pizza at home. I have discovered two fabulous crusts that both happen to be gluten-free. One you make yourself out of riced cauliflower. The other, all you do is you buy it and it's ready to go. So the two crusts, the ease of them makes this so easy to do at home. So I'm going to share the secrets of my two crusts. I'm going to share with you how to make my cauliflower crust that we're loving right now. I'm also going to share the tools and the tips that will help you make this at home if you choose to make the cauliflower crust pizza. And I'm going to share with you my two favorite toppings for whichever crust you choose. So I am so excited. Oh, and I will also tack on the tips for those of you who have DM'd me about cooking these on a pellet grill. I have a RecTec, but whether you have a RecTec, a Traeger, Pit Boss, whatever that is, the principles would be the same. So I will address that. It's super simple. It won't take long. Okay, we're going to start with the crust. So for those of you who are watching on YouTube, I pulled this out of the freezer, so I'm going to show you exactly what it looks like. Those of you listening on the podcast, all of this will be in the show notes. I will say, if you're listening on the podcast and you want to see exactly what this looks like, just jump over to YouTube and you'll see all of my tools. Okay, this is the magic crust. It is Against the Grain Gourmet. And I'm telling you, I don't know why this is so good, but y'all, it is phenomenal. This is the only one that I've made for our small group. I've not made the homemade cauliflower pizza crust for our small group, which we've got about, I think, 18 people, 16. I pull these Against the Grain Gourmet crusts out, and I've made these several times. And I'm telling you, people go crazy. They love the pizzas. They absolutely go crazy over them. I don't know why they're so good. I'm just going to read the ingredients. And I'm going to let you know it is gluten-free, but this Against the Grain is not a cauliflower crust. It is not cauliflower. It is, okay, it's free from gluten, grains, nuts, gums, soy, corn, and peanuts. So it doesn't have any of that in it. Okay, the ingredients are tapioca starch, milk, eggs, canola oil, cheddar cheese, fresh pasteurized milk cheese, cheese cultures, salt enzymes, mozzarella cheese, salt, Parmesan cheese, salt, and I believe that's all. So there's lots of cheese. And to me, that is probably 99% why it is so good. My cauliflower crust that I'm going to share with you, it has 3 different cheeses. Now, I want to tell you, again, here is the crust. So those of you on YouTube, you can see it. It is not called, the word crust is not on this package. So it's really not a pizza crust, or at least they don't call it that. This can be used for many things, but they call it 3 cheese, gluten-free pizza shell. So they call it a shell, and whether crust or shell, I use it for pizza crust. Let me just tell you, you need to get more than one when you go. These keep beautifully in the freezer, and you do not have to do anything. You don't have to pre-bake them. All you do is top these and then put the pizza that's got the toppings on it, put it in the oven. I usually do about 400, and you just cook it until the cheese melts and it's ready to eat. So there is nothing simpler than this. Okay, I am going to now share with you my other favorite crust that I do a lot when it's just Zane and me, or maybe just a few of us. It is absolutely delicious. Now it's a little more trouble. Well, it is a lot more trouble, but it's not difficult. And let me just say, I will link to a blog post. I did a whole entire blog post on this cauliflower pizza crust. But those of you who cook, you can jump over to that for the recipe, but probably you can listen to me and make this without a recipe, because you really don't need a recipe to make this cauliflower pizza crust. So let me just tell you, firstly, that you can make your riced cauliflower, or you can buy your cauliflower already riced, and you can buy frozen riced cauliflower or fresh riced cauliflower. So if you make your own, of course, you're going to get a head of cauliflower and you're going to steam it or cook it, and then you're going to rice it in a food processor or with your hands. That is going to be the longer way, but it will have great results. I have used frozen riced cauliflower and fresh, both fabulous. If you use frozen and fresh, this is all you do. I pour the frozen or the fresh, and I go to Trader Joe's a lot, and they pretty much always have fresh riced cauliflower. So that's what I usually use. It's wonderful. So when I use the fresh, I put it in a pie dish, or my Pyrex that has a side, cover it with saran wrap or cling wrap, stick it in the microwave, and I've pretty much been just doing it on high 8 minutes. Now, you might, if you have frozen, want to read the back of the package and see if there are any specifications for maybe adding a little water, for how long to cook it. And a lot of the frozen riced cauliflower packages will even have a pizza crust recipe on the back, and you can read down as far as you need to get to see how they tell you to cook it. But it should be basically the same, because you've got to cook the riced cauliflower. You don't want it raw. So after 8 minutes, the cauliflower is cooked. Now it's going to be hot. I usually just take the wrap off, set the dish aside, and let it cool to the touch, because you're going to be touching it with gloved hands or with clean hands. Once you have your cooked riced cauliflower, and let me back up for a second and say that I always get 2 bags of the fresh at Trader Joe's, and I always use 2 bags of frozen, unless it's a large family bag, and then I scoop out enough to do 2 pizzas. Basically, I always use enough cauliflower to make at least 2 pizzas. Number one, Zane and I usually eat a whole pizza. I mean, I make them, they're not tiny. They're bigger than what you would get as a personal pan pizza, but they're super, super thin. And if you use healthy ingredients, eating a whole pizza, in my opinion, is fine. So I always make 2. Okay, so you've got your riced cauliflower. You're going to let it cool. Now, and for those of you on YouTube, you're going to get to see what I'm using. Your next most important step is to squeeze all of the water out of the riced cauliflower. And when I tell you that you will literally not believe the water that will come out of cooked riced cauliflower, if you've never done it, it's almost comical. Okay. It just keeps going and keeps going. But anyway, this is the most basic, simplest thing to find, and it's just cheesecloth. You can find this cheesecloth at any grocery, Walmart, anywhere. Cheesecloth is just basic, and it's usually going to be where the aluminum foil, all that, those kind of things are. Now, you can use this for lots of things. You can use it for filtering fat off soups and stews or whatever, but basically I use this for the riced cauliflower. Now, what you're going to do, okay, but then I'm going to show you what I just bought. I haven't even used it. It came yesterday. When I use the cheesecloth, I have to double and sometimes triple the cheesecloth, or it will break because I have to squeeze so hard. So I did some research, and I found this fabulous nut milk bag. Nut milk, making your own nut milk at home, which I've never done that, but I would love to try it. So you can use this bag, this nut milk bag, for making nut milks, cold brew, where you strain your coffee grinds from the liquid, juicing, and more. So I saw this and it's commercial grade. Look, it shows on the back how to make the different nut milks. But I want y'all to see how sturdy that looks. And it even has a drawstring and it's washable. Now this, and I'm holding it up, sorry for those of you listening to the podcast, there's a huge difference in the way these look. And I know there's going to be a difference in how this performs. So I'm not going to link to cheesecloth because it's everywhere, but I will link to this nut milk bag. And I can just tell you, after you make this pizza, if you do this pizza crust, if you love it and you want to make it again, you're probably going to want to buy this nut milk bag because it will not break at all. So you're going to put the riced cauliflower in either the cheesecloth or the nut milk bag. And you are going to squeeze and squeeze until there is absolutely nothing that comes out. And the reason I'm emphasizing this so much is that if there is moisture or any kind of liquid that is retained in that cauliflower, it will be soggy. It will not crisp up like it will if it's just as bone dry as you can get it. So that's why I'm being so exclamatory about getting all the liquid out. So once you have done that, then all you do is you add your ingredients and then you're going to pat out your crust. So I usually do about a tablespoon of Italian seasoning or some oregano, basil, a little thyme, just something to give it kick. And of course, kosher salt and pepper. I sprinkle it, at least a teaspoon, if not more, because you do not want it to be bland. So salt, little pepper, and then some Italian seasoning. So that's your seasonings. Then all you add after that is super simple. You're going to add 1 egg, and I always go ahead and get my egg beaten in a bowl and just set it aside because you want to have it already beaten before you add it to all the riced cauliflower. So just remember, you're going to have 1 egg, and then this is super simple, 3 cheeses. And I, just like on this pizza crust against the grain, has several cheeses. This one has several cheeses, and there's a reason. It just makes a good pizza crust. I do a third, just because that's easy and because it works. And the cheeses that I use are crumbled goat cheese, fresh Parmesan, and mozzarella. Now you can add a little more, a little less, but those are the 3 that I use, and those are the proportions. The crumbled goat cheese is one that I would not recommend leaving out. The texture and the consistency of that is part of what makes this crust stay together and just have a great, it's just got a different consistency. It's finer, it's more dense. Whereas the others they add a lot of flavor, but they don't contribute as much to texture. So I find crumbled goat cheese, I think you can find that everywhere. I've seen it at Target. It's definitely at Trader Joe's. I have seen it at the grocery. So crumbled goat cheese, and then mozzarella and Parmesan. Don't use green can Parmesan. Anytime that I refer to Parmesan, I mean like fresh or grated fresh or what you would get at Costco. The green can doesn't have much of a place anywhere in our house other than to, interestingly, sprinkle on top of pizza after it's cooked. I do like it that way, but I don't consider it an ingredient when Parmesan is called for. And I'm just curious. I'm curious as to how many people like me put green can Parmesan and red pepper flakes on your pizza. I don't know what it is. I'm always looking for the can when the pizza's done. Okay, so you've got your riced cauliflower, you've got your spices in there, you throw them in, then you put in the egg, and then you mix that all up before you add the cheeses. Just go ahead and get I put on my disposable gloves, I mix it up. You want to really massage it. You want every piece of riced cauliflower to be coated with the egg and the seasonings. You just want to get it massaged in really well. Then I add the cheeses and I massage it. I toss it with my fingers, just get it really, really good and coated. And that's one reason that I just love having disposable gloves. And I probably go through 5 or 10 a day on a cooking day because I'm putting them on, doing something with my hands, throwing them away, putting on more. And I order tons of them. I order them from, gracious, what is it called? I'll find out where I order and I will link to it. I think it's Restaurant Supply. The reason I order that many is during the pandemic and COVID, one of the first things that was not on the shelf was the disposable gloves. So I panicked and I am still using disposable gloves that I bought during COVID, boxes and boxes. And I did not hoard because this is Restaurant Supply. They did not run out. But anyway, love, love, love my gloves. So you're going to mix all of that together. Then all you do is you pat it out. Now, I am going to tell you that I prefer square pizza because it's, to me, easier to cut. It looks better. And I'm just going to show you how I do it. I first just lay out, and you're going to want, this is one of the things you're going to want parchment paper. And whatever shape you're using, whether you're going to roll it out, pat it out, round or square, you're going to want to pat it out on parchment paper. Okay. Now, on how you pat, you're basically just going to put a big pile in the middle of the parchment and you're just going to start patting. Now, I guess you could use a rolling pin, but patting to me works just fine. It's very easy to work with. You want to keep patting. And on my blog post video, you can see me patting out a cauliflower pizza crust. But you want to just keep pressing and patting and spreading it out. And you want to get it in you don't want it thick. You want it to, this is thin crust pizza. You want it thin. And when you get to the border, you just want to make a little bit of a border by maybe just pressing up and just a little bit of a border where if you put sauce, it's not going to run over the side, and just to give it some definition along the edges. Okay, so you have your parchment paper and you have patted out your cauliflower crust into a thin shape, whether it's square or round. Now, this is a tool that you need. You can use this for more than just pizza. I could not do without this. This happens to be, and I'll link to it, this is a Nordic ware. It is called, I believe, a cake spatula, but you can also use this like as a pizza peel. It's not huge, but it's perfect for when you make your own pizzas. So what you're going to do, if your parchment is just laying on top of your countertop or whatever it's on, you're just going to get your cake spatula pizza peel, you're going to slip it under the parchment, and then you are going to have your pizza ready to put on whatever pan you're going to cook it in. Because you have to bake this pizza crust before you top it and then bake the pizza. So whereas with this against the grain, all you do is top it and bake. With this cauliflower crust, you're going to make it, pat it out and bake it. Then you're going to let it cool a bit, top it, and then bake it until the pizza is cooked, which is basically the toppings, and you're basically melting the cheese and just giving it time to heat through. Okay, so you have the pizza on top of your pizza peel, but it's on top of parchment. Now I'm going to share with you, I used to just slide it onto a pizza pan that was round. The ones that I used to use had holes in them, but I'm going to show you what I'm loving more than I can describe to you. I saw this at Williams-Sonoma. I've never liked a pizza stone because, and I'm going to show you the back of this one, because they're rough. They're not pretty. They get just awful looking. But as you can see, okay, I found this at Williams-Sonoma. They have round and they have square like this, and they have rectangular that's even larger than this. I have two of this. It is the Emily Henry, Emily Henry, y'all, I do not know how to pronounce that, but it's the French bakeware company. This is the best pizza stone I've ever had. It's glazed, it's smooth, it's beautiful. What I love about this is you can not only cook the pizza on it and it makes the pizza fabulous, but you take it straight to the table, cut the pizza on it, serve the pizza off of this. I'm just obsessed with this. Okay, let me tell you, because I've had lots of DMs because people have seen me serving it off of this and talking about it. The way you use this pizza stone, and this is probably any pizza stone, but you preheat the pizza stone while your oven is heating. Now, I use my pellet grill instead of my oven unless it's raining. And it's the same thing. The temperature is the same. If it's 400, I typically do 400, 425, either inside or on the pellet grill. A pellet grill acts just like an oven. If a recipe calls for baking something at 400 and you're going to do it on the pellet grill, you just turn it on 400. There's no mystery, no puzzle. Forever, I just would try to Google what temperature pellet grill crab, or what temperature for the pellet grill do you cook chicken? Well, basically, you don't have to do that because you would just do what you would do in a normal oven as far as temp. Okay, so we've got our pizza on the parchment, and because we're using a shell, this should be already sitting either in the oven or on the pellet grill. So if it's preheated, then I'm going to take the cake spatula that has the parchment and the pizza, and I'm going to slide it onto the preheated pizza shell in the preheated oven or pellet grill. Now, you want to keep the parchment if you're using like a pizza pan. If you're using a pizza stone, you do not want to use the parchment because you want it to touch the stone. The parchment is just for if you need the paper that will make it crisp. The pizza stone will do that for you. So you're going to bake it until it is very, very golden and starting to crisp along the edges. Typically, mine take about 20, 25 minutes. Now, you're going to want to flip it and do the same thing, but just a little bit shorter time on the other side. This is where your spatula comes in again. You're going to take the pizza with the spatula. You're going to get the pizza on it. And then I always just get any kind of pizza pan or baking sheet. I put it on top of the pizza, flip the pizza spatula, the cookie spatula, and then slide it back onto the pizza stone or the pizza plate, and then cook the other side. The other side does not take as long. It's already a little bit starting to get golden because it's been cooking on the other side. I would say about 10 minutes, but just watch it because you don't want to burn this fabulous pizza crust. So when it is done, just pull it out. Don't turn your oven off if you're going to make pizza after this. But if you're going to make pizza later in the day, you can even turn your oven off and the pizza crust will be fine, just stuck in the fridge until you want to top it and cook it later that night. So when it cools off a bit, you want it to cool off because it's going to be very soft and it might break if you start throwing toppings on it right when you pull it out of the oven. But as it sits, it's going to harden. It's almost like when you cook bacon, when you pull bacon out of the microwave or out of a skillet, it's real soft and pliable. But if you let it sit and you come back 30 minutes later, you can pick it up and it's stiff and crisp. That's sort of what happens to this crust. So you want to let it sit, I would say at least 30 minutes. And you have your crust. So now all you do is top it, whether you have made the homemade cauliflower or this. I'm going to share with you my favorite toppings. Now, let me say one thing about the cauliflower crust. If you make this cauliflower crust, you're going to want to go a little bit lighter on the toppings. It's not as sturdy as the against the grain. So when I do the cauliflower crust, I try to do something that is not quite as heavy, some pepperoni, just some onions and some red sauce. I don't pile on the mushrooms and the peppers and the chunk sausage. I just try to do, now you can do that, but you would want to cut your pizza. It's going to be hard to pick it up. But anyway, I'm going to now that I've shared with you my 2 favorite crusts and the tools you need to make the cauliflower one, I'm going to share with you my 2 favorite topping recipes for these pizzas. Number 1, and this has always been a hit at our small group, I just call it my pesto pizza. All I do is I don't make my own pesto. I just buy Buitoni. It's in the refrigerated section. That was Cooks Illustrated's number 1 grocery store pesto. It's over there where the refrigerated pasta is and the ricotta cheese, so forth. So it's there. I also love Costco's basil pesto. And if you use a lot of basil pesto, that's a good one to get. Or if you're far savvier than I am, you can make your own. Either way, you put pesto on the crust, and typically I spray my crusts with EVOO, the Trader Joe's EVOO, but basil pesto consists of a lot of EVOO, so you don't have to pre-spray your crust. So you spread your pesto, and I saute fresh baby spinach, and I do handfuls. I buy the cartons of baby spinach, and I literally will do a half to a whole carton of the baby spinach, because when you throw it into the dish, it's going to shrink down. But I put some EVOO, and I put it on medium high and saute it, toss it with tongs, and there's some salt and pepper, and it is absolutely fabulous. I just break it up and spread it out on the pizza. Just disperse it really well. Okay, so if I have cherry tomatoes, I will cut them in slices, maybe halves or thirds. I'm very particular about my cherry tomatoes. I'm a cherry tomato snob. I only love the San Marzano sweets that you can usually almost find always at Publix and at Trader Joe's. They are always red and ripe and sweet. Now, of course, some of the fresh farmers market cherry tomatoes are good sometimes, but cherry tomatoes to me are very hard to find in just a great, sweet, tastes like a tomato condition. But anyway, if I have those, I'll slice those. And then the mozzarella, I like to use some shredded whole milk mozzarella that you would buy just where shredded cheese is. And then I also like to use some fresh mozzarella. And if I've got it, I always use burrata cheese, which is fresh mozzarella encased in cream. It's amazing. So that is one of my favorite toppings. And basically you slide that into the oven and you just cook it until all the cheeses melt and the top gets golden. The other favorite, and I made this for the first time last night for our small group, and people went crazy. And y'all, it is literally the easiest. We had tzatziki's. We catered just Greek themed food. So I thought, I'm going to make a Greek pizza. So I got this shell, this against the grain. All I did was I cut a boatload of orange, yellow, and red bell peppers, cut them in small pieces, chopped up some red onion, very, very fine. I got some sliced black olives. I sliced some Kalamata olives. If I'd had the English cucumber, I would have chopped up some of that. But I got those things because they are, what you think of with Greek. And what I did is I sprayed the shell with EVOO. Then I put crumbled feta on the shell. Then I put all of those veggies that I just mentioned. And then I put mozzarella and I sprinkled, and I just did shredded. Actually, I also I sliced some mozzarella balls that were in water. I sliced some of them, and just because when you use shredded mozzarella and then you use fresh, they are going to have 2 totally different consistencies and they're going to look different on the pizza. So I like to combine the 2. And then I sprinkled some Greek seasoning, just a little bit to give it that kick. Y'all, it was fabulous. It was just like the most wonderful. It was almost like to Greek food what bruschetta is to like Italian, where you have your little pieces of bread, your baguettes that you toast and you top them with all the chopped tomatoes and the basil. Well, this, you had all the Greek toppings and it was just fabulous. So that is what we have loved recently, that we're loving right now. I'll probably be making this over and over again, putting it on Instagram. But if you have any questions, definitely feel free to reach out. Guys, I hope this was helpful. And I hope that if you make either of these crusts or any of these pizzas, that you will let me know. Always mention me on Instagram or use hashtag Family Savvy, because I just love knowing what's going on in your kitchen. And I so appreciate you for listening or watching. And as always, you have a blessed rest of your day.